Good evening, everybody. Right, first up, a big shout out to wordupdesigns.eu for this awesome hoodie that they sent to me, and also this lovely little coffee cup, reusable coffee cup, Stop Brexit. You need to wear these things out and about, people, but also you need to get supporting all of those different resources that are so vital to our ecosystem. So all of this merch stuff, the New European I was plugging before, subscribe to them, make sure that they've got that regular income. European movement, again, become a paid up member. It all really helps get the stability in the system. Right, now, what I want to talk about today is really painful, blatant logical fails in mathematics that we're seeing through all of these trade negotiations. You will see from the government's own analysis that it doesn't add up at all. There was that beautiful quote today that leaving the EU and single market and customs union in order to do our own free trade deals around the world is like giving up a 3-course meal on the promise of a packet of crisps. So let's deal with some very clear logical fails here. You may hear some of the prominent Brexiteers saying, well, outside the EU is where 90% of the growth in global traders or global growth or whatever. So what? Like, let's talk about growth, because if you take an elephant and you have 1% growth over a year, that is more volume added than if you have an amoeba and you have 1,000-fold growth or 10,000-fold growth. You've got to think about starting points. That's just the growth issue. But let's say that 90% of the market is outside the EU. No, let's go further. Let's say in the whole galaxy of the Milky Way, 99.99999999999% of the trade is outside the EU. Is that a logical reason for suddenly getting an anxiety attack and leaving the EU customs union? No. Because the question is, if you want to tap into all of that market and whatever growth rate it is, do you want to do that as a solo entity, or do you want to do that as a collective of 28 countries that have combined trading experience and combined weight? Now, if you're saying, well, alone we can be light and nimble, whereas with the EU you've got all these conflicting interests, fantastic. But the proof is in the pudding. So how many trade deals does the EU have? It's 50 plus. Let's look at America. They've got 20. And if you look at China, well, the EU has got more than America and China combined, for example. Canada's got, what, 15, and Australia's got about the same, 15 or so. Switzerland is doing particularly well on 38 because it's got the trading bloc of EFTA. But the EU is storming it on that front. So the proof is in the pudding there. Now let's talk about another factor. I just saw a tweet by Douglas Carswell saying, look at the amount of trade that we do with the EU. It is declining. Well, given that 90% of the growth is meant to be from outside the EU, isn't that a good and healthy natural indication that the EU itself, by virtue of all of its trade deals around the world, is actually helping us to tap into that growth and tap into those other markets and grow in those other markets relative to the EU? Is that not a natural dynamic? And to this I would add what Boris Johnson apparently said on the radio, I think it was this morning, that, well, look at the growth outside the EU. Look at, for example, our 100% growth, which apparently was false, with South Korea. Well, the EU has done a trade deal with South Korea, so surprise, surprise, if that has facilitated our trade with South Korea. I mean, the logic here, guys, is absolutely friggin' bizarre. And even more bizarre is that clearly the mainstream media, like, for example, classically the BBC, do not have the nous, knowledge or research teams to challenge this complete bunkum from all of the politicians that they regularly invite on. It is a sad situation when you have such clear logical fails in how systems work. And this is the path that we are being guided down. I ask you people, I think it's starting to fall apart, but by God, you know, these are bizarre times that we're living through. They really are.